Her boss kissed her in the car. Not a kiss on the cheek. Not something you could mistake as polite. I watched from across the street, my iced coffee turning warm in my hand, as my wife leaned in and let him claim her lips like they belonged to him. Then came the whisper. I couldn't hear it too far, but I saw her lips form the words. My phone picked up the audio from the mic I had hidden in her purse 2 weeks ago. This alpha acts, she purred. Mine only talks. I froze. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I walked back to my car, started the engine, and stared at the dashboard like it could give me a reason not to explode. My mind was fire, and my chest felt like someone had kicked a hole through it. Her name was Jessica. We'd been married 8 years. She used to light up when I entered a room. Now, she barely noticed when I left. Her boss? Derek Matthews. Sleazy smile. Always too smooth, too polished. A guy who never let go of his high school quarterback ego. I met him once at a company party. He looked me up and down like I was a janitor crashing a black tie event. He didn't know I owned 28% of the company. Well, I used to. After I saw the kiss, I made 3 phone calls. My lawyer, my broker, and my partner in Hong Kong. By 4 p.m., I had bought 51% of the shares. By 6 p.m., I was the majority owner. The next morning, I walked into the building with a black suit, a red tie, and enough fire in my veins to ignite the whole damn office. Jessica was already there, sipping her almond milk latte, laughing at something Derek had whispered in her ear. They didn't see me at first. I stood at the back of the boardroom and let them finish their little comedy routine. She touched his arm. He brushed hair from her face. Her wedding ring caught the light like a blade. Good morning, I said. Dead silence. I walked to the head of the table, pulled out a chair, and Saturday, effective immediately, I said, Derek Matthews, you're terminated for inappropriate conduct with an employee. And Jessica, I looked at her, watched her confidence collapse like a burning building. You're fired for violating company policy and breaching spousal trust. She laughed. Actually laughed. You can't fire me, she said. You don't have that kind of. I own the company, I said calmly. You ever watch a woman realize she gambled everything and lost it all in a single breath? Jessica's lips parted like she was going to protest. Then she saw the paperwork. The signatures. The lawyer in the corner nodding. She stood up fast, like the room was on fire. You're insane, Ethan. This is personal revenge. It's illegal. You won't get away with this. I smiled. I already have. She stormed out. Derek followed her like a scolded mutt. They didn't even say goodbye. Back at home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Her wine glass was still on the table from the night before. I picked it up, turned it in my hands, saw the red stain of lipstick that didn't belong to a woman who respected her marriage. I sat on the couch. My body was trembling. Not with rage. Not anymore. With grief. This woman, the one who used to kiss me like the world was ending, she'd whispered about another man being alpha. She didn't know me, but she would. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of removing her name from every legal document she ever touched. I'd pull her car from the lease, her name from the mortgage, her access from every account. She lost her lover, her salary, and her name, all in one day. That's how a real alpha acts. And tomorrow, I'd teach her what regret really feels like. It didn't start with a kiss. It started with a dress. One I'd never seen before, tight, black, expensive. Jessica wore it on a random Tuesday, claiming it was just a little boost of confidence for a big meeting. The dress clung to her in a way that was meant to be admired, but not by me. Not anymore. She stopped wearing the necklace I gave her on our anniversary. Started wearing heels again, even though she used to complain they hurt her feet. She'd stay late at work more often. Deadlines, she'd say with a yawn, tossing her bag by the door, barely making eye contact. But what really did it wasn't her lies. It was the way she stopped lying well. Once, I asked her where she'd been. She blinked too many times, shrugged too quickly. Dinner with Tracy. You know Tracy. Except I did know Tracy. And I knew she was in Chicago visiting her sister that week. Still, I said nothing. That's the thing about suspicion, it doesn't shout. It whispers. And then it collects receipts. So I started watching. Tracking. I'm not proud of it, but I needed the truth. I placed a small mic in her purse, linked it to my phone. I checked her location when she said she'd be home late. She was always in the same office complex. Always the same time. And every night, when she got home, she'd take a long shower. A smug silence wrapped around her like perfume. There was a Saturday, she said she had a work brunch. I followed her. Sat in my car across from the restaurant. Watched her walk in alone. But she didn't stay alone for long. Derek showed up. They didn't sit at a table. They went upstairs to the private lounge. An hour later, they came down laughing. Her hand grazed his back. His fingers brushed her waist. I clenched the steering wheel. I could have walked in. Could have made a scene. But I wasn't going to shout in a restaurant like some heartbroken fool. I wanted proof. That's when I ordered the PI. Within days, I had pictures. Restaurant. Office. Even one of them walking into a hotel. Still, I didn't say a word. I waited. Let her dig the grave herself. The morning before the kiss, she stood in front of the mirror curling her hair. I sat behind her on the bed, pretending to scroll my phone. "You look different," I said. She smiled at her reflection, not at me. "It's the curls," she said. It wasn't. It was the glow. The dangerous kind. The one that says, I belong to someone else now. When she left, I didn't follow. I already had the route. Already had the destination. I waited across the street from Derek's car, sipping that damn iced coffee and trying not to shatter the cup in my hand. Then I saw it. The kiss. The whisper. This alpha acts. Mine only talks. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation. She didn't just cheat. She mocked me. To him. I didn't go home that night. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I planned. People think heartbreak makes you weak. No. Real heartbreak? It makes you strategic. And I was about to become the most dangerous version of myself. One she'd never see coming. She came home that night like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just let her boss grope her like a toy in the parking lot. Like she hadn't whispered something so venomous it lodged in my chest and stayed there, rotting everything around it. Jessica tossed her purse on the counter, kicked off her heels, and exhaled like her day had just been exhausting. I stayed seated at the dining table, fingers laced together, watching her move through the kitchen like this was still her kingdom. "You hungry?" she asked, not looking at me. I could heat up the lasagna. I didn't answer. She turned. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, just thinking about work." She smirked. That's a first. That was her thing lately. Every sentence had a knife hidden in it. Some passive-aggressive jab. She thought I was weak. Quiet. That I didn't see the signs or didn't have the guts to call her out. She forgot who I used to be. "Jessica," I said finally, keeping my voice calm. "Who's the alpha now?" She paused mid-pour, red wine splashing over the rim. "What?" I stood, walked to the living room, and picked up the file I had left on the couch. Dropped it in front of her with a thud. Dozens of printed photos spilled out. Her and Derek, restaurants, hotels, that rooftop bar she said she hated. Her smile in every frame was radiant. Radiant in a way I hadn't seen in years. She stared at them for a long moment, then laughed. That cold, dismissive, high-pitched laugh that she used when she thought she had the upper hand. "You really hired a PI," she said. "God, that's pathetic." I didn't say anything. Just stood there, waiting, letting the silence twist the air. She folded her arms. "Look, Ethan, things have been off between us for a while. You've been distant. Always working, always tired. I needed." "Stop," I said sharply. "Don't give me the tired speech. Don't pretend this is some mutual drift. You weren't just trying to find yourself, Jess. You were spreading yourself." Her face went red. "You don't get to judge me. You haven't touched me in months." "And now I know why," I said, stepping closer. "Because I could feel it. The emptiness. The lie in every smile. You were already his." She didn't apologize. Of course not. Jessica had buried her shame years ago under layers of sarcasm and pride. Instead, she rolled her eyes. "Derek is confident. He doesn't second-guess himself every damn minute. He makes decisions. He acts." I nodded slowly. "So you think he's an alpha?" She lifted her chin. "I know he is." I smiled. He was. Her brow furrowed. "What the hell does that mean?" "I bought the company," I said. "I own it now. As of this morning, Derek's unemployed. And so are you." Silence. You could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Her lips parted, then closed. She blinked fast, like her brain was buffering. She wasn't used to losing. Then she exploded. "You vindictive little man," she hissed. "You think firing us makes you strong? This is abuse, Ethan. I'll sue you. I'll ruin you." I took a step closer, met her glare with a stare made of stone. "No, Jessica. You ruined yourself. I just cut the cord." She slapped me. It wasn't hard. It wasn't unexpected. It was desperate. And it was the last thing she'd ever do to me with that ring on her finger. I turned, walked away, and went upstairs without another word. She screamed after me, throwing something glass. It shattered against the wall, but I didn't flinch. I had already shattered inside. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. Sleep was too gentle, too forgiving. I wasn't ready for dreams, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after a bomb goes off. Downstairs, Jessica was pacing. I heard the soft stomp of her bare feet on the hardwood floor. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was scheming, no doubt trying to figure out how to spin it all in her favor. But it was too late. By morning, I had already locked her out of all shared accounts. The lawyer was looped in. I left divorce papers on the kitchen counter next to a single post-it note. I loved you until you spit on it. I expected rage, drama, but what I got was worse, silence. When I came down to grab my keys, Jessica was sitting at the table, legs crossed, sipping coffee like this was just another day in paradise. She looked up at me and smiled. "You're not the man I married." "You're right," I said. "That man thought you were worth something." She tilted her head, eyes gleaming like a snake ready to strike. "You think this makes you strong? Cold? Untouchable? You're just a bitter little boy with money." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The facts were on my side, and she was bleeding status now. Her phone buzzed, probably Derek. I watched her glance at it, then quickly flip it over. "Interesting. You really think this is the end?" she asked, a smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. "I know your habits, Ethan. I know your fears. I could bury you." I stepped closer, calm, but ice cold inside. "You don't even know who you are anymore. You're just a pretty face that someone else made valuable. And now you're nothing." I walked past her, left the house, and didn't look back. That day at the office was different. Whispers followed me like shadows. People knew something had gone down, they just didn't know how deep the cut was. I called an emergency board meeting, sat at the head of the table, and addressed the room with a stillness I hadn't felt in weeks. Effective immediately, I began. "We will be conducting a full HR audit. Every department, every manager. I want transparency. I want accountability. And I want loyalty." People nodded. Some looked scared. Good. They should be. Later, in my office, I opened the drawer where I kept a photo of me and Jessica on our wedding day. I stared at it for a while. Her smile. My arm around her. A perfect life frozen in time. Then I shredded it, piece by piece. That night, she wasn't home. No note. No call. Just absence. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. I sat on the balcony, a glass of whiskey in hand, and watched the city lights pulse in the distance. I remembered the way she used to laugh at my jokes. The way she clung to me after nightmares. The way she once whispered, "You're my home." None of it mattered now. She'd sold it all for a thrill, for ego, for some cheap validation from a man who couldn't even hold his job for 24 hours. That was the emotional part. Now came the cold part. She took a match to my life. I was going to burn her castle down with it. 3 days. That's how long she lasted in silence. 3 days without the house, without her job, without the daily illusion that she was still in control. On the 4th morning, she showed up, banged on the door like a cop with a warrant. I opened it slowly, coffee in hand, towel around my neck, sweat still drying from a 5-mile run. Her eyes were red, but dry. Hair tied up, makeup barely there. This wasn't the seductive Jessica that used to twist every argument into a performance. This was the stripped-down version, the one with no cards left to play. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in like it still belonged to her, glancing around at the furniture like it might speak for her. "I talked to HR," she started. "They said there was no severance, that the firing was immediate and final." "That's correct," I said, sitting on the arm of the couch. "You breached multiple policies. You used your authority to conceal a personal relationship. On company time. In company spaces. You're enjoying this," she snapped. I leaned forward slightly. "You know what I would have enjoyed? Loyalty." She paced in front of me like a caged animal. "I gave you years of my life. I supported you when no one else did. I stood by you when the startup failed twice. And I never forgot that," I replied quietly. "But none of that justifies tearing down what we built for a cheap thrill in a parking lot." Her jaw tightened. "It wasn't cheap." "No," I said. "It was expensive. And now you're paying for it." She laughed bitterly, brushing hair out of her face. "You really think people are going to praise you for this? For humiliating your wife? For firing a man because you couldn't handle the truth?" "I didn't fire him because I couldn't handle the truth," I said, rising to my feet. "I fired him because he was unprofessional. Because he abused his position. Because he let his zipper make decisions instead of his brain. And you? You were collateral damage. She blinked. Hard. Like I just punched her in the chest. I walked over to the drawer and pulled out an envelope. Thick. Heavy. These are the divorce documents, I said, placing it on the table. Inside is a financial agreement that's more than fair, considering everything. If you want to fight it, be my guest. But know this, I have everything. Photos, recordings, emails. I don't lose, Jessica. She looked at the envelope like it might explode. I loved you, I added, voice low. But you chose chaos. And now you're drowning in it. She picked up the envelope and walked toward the door. Before stepping out, she turned, eyes sharp but glassy. You'll regret this, she whispered. I tilted my head. No. I regret not seeing who you really were sooner. She left, and that was the last time she stepped into my house. The next few days were a blur of signatures, phone calls, asset transfers. I had the locks changed, her name removed from every utility, every account, every car title. I hired a PR team to manage the office rumors. Told them to keep it clean, professional. No scandal. No revenge fantasy. She disappeared from the company website like a deleted typo. Just a shadow. A name no one dared mention. And Derek? He tried to sue. Lasted a week before his own texts were leaked. I didn't leak them, but I didn't stop them either. Karma's a mirror. You break it, you bleed. There's a strange quiet that follows destruction. Not peace. Not relief. Just stillness. The kind of stillness where you sit in a house that echoes, wondering how much of your life was real, and how much was just good lighting on a bad movie. After Jessica left, after the divorce papers were signed, stamped, and fed into the system like a dead file, I sat on the floor of my bedroom and looked at the empty side of the closet. Hangers dangled like ribs. Her perfume still lingered in the air, faint but cruel. I could have boxed everything. Burned it. Posted the ashes on Instagram. But I didn't. I kept one thing. A photo. Not of us. Just her. Standing on a bridge in Paris, smiling at the wind. Before the lies. Before the alpha whispers. Before the betrayal. I stared at it for a full hour. Then I folded it in half and slid it behind the mirror. Not gone. Just exiled. Work became my oxygen. The office was colder now. People didn't know whether to congratulate me or walk on eggshells. I preferred the eggshells. I turned my attention to everything I had ignored during the marriage. My health. My mind. My friends who I hadn't seen in years because Jessica hated them for reminding her of the old version of me. I called Ryan first, my college roommate, the guy who stood next to me at the altar and faded into the background shortly after. We met at a dive bar. No pretense. Just beer and brutal honesty. Jesus, man, he said after hearing the short version. She really was that cold? She was worse, I said. But I let it happen. I let myself become so small she had to cheat just to feel something. He didn't pity me. Didn't lecture me. He just raised a glass. To burning it all down, he said. To rebuilding better, I replied. And that night, for the first time in months, I laughed. Not because the pain was gone. Because I realized I had survived it. Jessica tried to reach out twice. Hey text. Then a longer one. I know you hate me, but I miss the way you looked at me when we danced in the kitchen. I didn't answer. She didn't deserve my silence, but she sure as hell didn't deserve my voice. Weeks passed. I started sleeping better. Started running more. Read books I hadn't touched since before the wedding. One morning, while checking into a hotel for a business summit, I caught my reflection in the lobby mirror. I looked like a man again, not the ghost she left behind. At the summit, I spoke about resilience and leadership, how setbacks reveal the core of a person. People clapped, shook my hand. Some whispered that they heard what happened and admired how I handled it. But it wasn't about admiration. It was about freedom. The kind that doesn't come from revenge. The kind that comes when you stop waiting for someone to apologize and start living like they never existed. Jessica was a chapter. A long, beautiful, poisonous chapter. And I had finally turned the page. It was a Thursday. Rain tapping against the windows like the universe trying to whisper a warning. That's when she came back. Jessica didn't knock this time. She buzzed at the gate. I was upstairs, tying my tie for a board meeting, when I saw her name light up on the screen. Jessica Gate. She hadn't changed the contact name. I hadn't either. Not out of nostalgia. Just as a reminder. I didn't answer. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed again, this time. A text. I just want 5 minutes. Please. I don't know what made me press the button, Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to see how far she'd fallen. She walked through the front door like a stranger in a museum. No bags. No umbrella. Just soaked hair, smeared makeup, and a designer coat she probably couldn't afford anymore. Her eyes scanned the place like she expected something to have changed. It hadn't. But I had. "You look healthy," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "You look like you've been losing sleep." She gave a hollow laugh and nodded. "I have." I didn't invite her to sit, but she did anyway. Crossed her legs, hands clasped in her lap like she was in therapy. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she started. Good. I cut her off. "Because there's nothing left." She flinched, but she pushed through. "I just need you to know." Derek meant nothing. It wasn't love. It wasn't even good. I leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Then why do it?" She hesitated. "Because I felt invisible. Because I needed to feel like someone wanted me. You stopped looking at me like I mattered. And instead of telling me that," I said coldly, "you opened your legs for someone who looked at everyone like that." Her face cracked. Not an anger regret. Real, raw, painful regret. The kind that doesn't fix anything. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry before it's too late." "Too late for what?" I asked. She pulled something from her purse. A letter. Handwritten. Folded neatly. "I got a job in Seattle," she said. "New start. New everything. I leave Sunday." "Congratulations," I said, unmoved. "I thought maybe we could leave things less broken than they are." I took the letter, but didn't read it. Not then. Just held it. "I loved you," she said, standing slowly. "Even when I was destroying us. That's the part that makes me sick." I walked her to the door. And before she left, she turned back and looked at me, really looked. "You were the real alpha," she said. "I just didn't see it until I lost everything." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She stepped outside. The door closed behind her like a vault. I stared at the letter in my hand for a long time. Then I dropped it into the fireplace. Watched the edges curl. The ink melt. Some doors are meant to stay shut. Some ghosts don't deserve to be kept. She wanted a final word. A final moment. But in the end, silence said everything. 2 months later, I stood at the edge of the beach, wind slicing through my shirt, watching the waves slam into the shore like they had something to prove. The sand was cold. The sky a dull gray. But inside, for the first time in years, I felt quiet. Not empty, just still. Jessica was gone. Not just from the house. Not just from the company. But from my system. It didn't happen all at once. Healing's never a straight line. Some mornings, I'd wake up expecting to hear her hum in the kitchen, only to remember she was 5 states away. Other days, I'd pass someone in the grocery store wearing her perfume and nearly choke. But those moments got weaker. She got smaller. And I got stronger. There's something about betrayal that either breaks you or rebuilds you. I let it do both. First, it shattered the man I used to be, the one who stayed quiet, who excused red flags, who believed love meant loyalty by default. Then it forged someone else. Someone who doesn't tolerate emotional charity. Someone who doesn't beg to be chosen. Someone who understands that real strength isn't dominance, it's restraint. I didn't retaliate with scandal. I didn't leak the tapes, the emails, the hotel bills. I could have, but I didn't. Because her greatest punishment wasn't public shame. It was knowing I moved on. Without her. I sold the house 3 weeks after she left. Too many memories in the walls. Too many ghosts in the closets. Bought a loft in the city. Minimalist. Open. Clean. It didn't echo when I walked. I filled it with things that made me feel new. New books. New clothes. New rules. One rule stood above the rest. Never let someone in who needs to be fixed. I didn't need a project. I didn't want potential. I wanted presence. Ryan introduced me to someone, Claire. She was nothing like Jessica. She didn't try to impress me. Didn't flatter. Didn't pretend. She listened. She asked questions that didn't make me feel interrogated. And when I told her the story, not all the ugly details, just the bones of it, she didn't gasp or lean in like it was juicy gossip. She just said, "I'm glad you got out." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "That's awful." Just, "I'm glad." That hit deeper than anything. We've had 3 dates. No pressure. No expectations. Just easy silence and real conversation. I don't know where it's going. But for once, I'm okay not knowing. Some nights, I still think about what Jessica said. This alpha acts. Mine only talks. She was right about one thing. The real alpha does act. But not for ego. Not for applause. He He acts to protect his peace, to cut the rope before it drags him under. He doesn't roar. He doesn't chase. He rebuilds. Quietly. Relentlessly. And when the dust settles, he walks forward. Alone if necessary. Because real strength isn't shown in how hard you hold on. It's in how gracefully you let go.